This is a Louie T Network exclusive.
Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft Zone.
Good debate with me, your man, Louie T. Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where I aim to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2016 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, because I cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. So, we'll get a score for each and every single player selected by X said team in the draft, get an aggregate, divide by the number of selections made by that team in the draft, which will then yield us a final overall grade for that team's draft. Then we'll move on to the next team in the series, picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, in total control. It's the up format, or better known as the you pick format, where you, the viewers, are in total control simply by being the first commenter in the comment section to give me the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. And I don't care how you phrase it, as long as that team and the phrase next is in that comment and you're first, not second, not third, not 99th, that team will be up next in the series. And keep in mind, we're right in the midpoint of the series now, so keep in mind, teams have already been done. If you've been following the series, and a lot of you have, you're very astute, you're very aware of what's going on, you know who's been done already, so I don't have to worry about you. But there are some people who are just brand new coming to the series, so keep in mind, if you're looking for a team to be done, they may already be done. So just make sure you know which teams you're putting up in the comment section, especially if you're first. You don't want to squander an opportunity to get a team that you would like to see up in the series. That being said, it's time to talk about America's team, Jersey boys, the Dallas Cowboys out in Big D. And I must say, another fabulous draft turned in by this group. And Stephen Jones and his thumbprint is really starting to be felt on this franchise as we move forward into the twilight years of Jerry Jones. And again, we don't know when Jerry is going to finally say, all right, I'm going to glide to the side and let Stephen handle this. Probably much like Al Davis, never. Until his dying day, he's probably going to have his say so and his imprint on this Cowboys franchise. But tell you what, Stephen Jones is gaining traction and power in that organization, especially during the draft. He's made some really good decisions. You know, most notably, no, Dad, we're not taking Johnny Manziel. Instead, we're going to take a guard that's going to come in here and be an all-pro for us in his rookie season. So you look at what the Cowboys have done, and I think this is another one of those fantabulous drafts where you look at the front half of this draft and you say, man, did anybody have a better front half of the draft than the Dallas Cowboys? You could argue Jacksonville, but I'm telling you right now, looking at the Cowboys' first 4 or 5 picks, you say to yourself, damn, that was some really good value for the Cowboys as they put together a 9-player haul in the 2016 NFL Draft. Let's jump into the Dallas Cowboys 2016 NFL Draft. Now, we start with the first round, 4th overall selection, our Ohio State running back, the Ohio State University running back, Ezekiel Elliott is the selection. A lot of people think that this guy has the talent and ability to be a Adrian Peterson, Todd Gurley type. I don't know if he's that good or that explosive as those two guys, especially, we know he's not as explosive as Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson is a one-of-a-kind back. I don't think he's going to do the things in terms of running away from defenders, running over guys, all those things that Adrian Peterson can and has been doing throughout his career. I will say he's a better pass catcher than Adrian Peterson ever was and ever will be. And you look at Todd Gurley, and I think he's a complete package type of back. I don't think he possesses the speed either that Adrian Peterson does, but he's not far behind. And I think he can catch the football, unlike Peterson. I think that Todd Gurley is a better prospect and was a better prospect coming out of college, if not for the knee injury, than Ezekiel Elliott. But that does not diminish what this guy is and the talent that he possesses and what he brings to the table. We heard Urban Meyer and the offensive coordinator at Ohio State say numerous times that This guy's the most physical football player, best football player they've ever seen without the football in their hands. So, I mean, that tells you a lot of what you want to hear and what you want to know about this guy is that he's a physical football player. I'm not going to break him down. I've obviously already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. But I will say this, I've been on board with this selection from day one. I mean, I've done this already and I hate to do it again, but I'm going to do it again because, I like to be right. And I talked about this last year during the regular season when the Cowboys were in the midst of a horrible 4-12 season. I said, look, if you're the Cowboys and let's say you end up with the 5th overall selection, of course I didn't know at the time they'd end up with the 4th overall selection. I said, how can you pass on a talent that is Ezekiel Elliott with that offensive line? Had Ezekiel Elliott been on this team last year, they'd probably win 6 or 7 games because that offensive line is that dominant. And as a once famous or infamous Cowboy once said, Darren McFadden left some meat on the bone last year. And so this is the guy that can take all the meat off the bone and then some, probably chew it up and eat the bristle outside of it. And so the way I look at it is, this is the guy that can come in and change the game, and this is what I said last year about that. Remember when I said this about the Dallas Cowboys on a local DC sports program last year?
But I challenged the Cowboys because I thought they dropped the ball last offseason when they let DeMarco Murray walk away and they elected to pass on the running back position in the draft and not address it in free agency, but, other than Darren McFadden, who has been okay for them, but he's not a game changer. They need a game changer. And if you're at, let's say 5, and Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State is sitting there behind that offensive line, can you pass that up if you're the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't think you do.
I don't think you can. And so I think if you have a choice, let's say 5 to 7, and that kind of caliber of running back is sitting there, that would take their offense from a B-, C+ to an A right away. And so I think you get Tony Romo back from injury, you get that kind of back, plug him behind that offensive line with those skill guys, Williams and Bryant and Beasley and Witten. That defense has been playing good this season. That could be a scary proposition for defenses.
And so you already know how I feel about Ezekiel Elliott. And the bottom line is, the Cowboys could not have made a better selection here at number 4 overall in the first round, 4th overall selection, running back out of the Ohio State University, Ezekiel Elliott. For me, is hit hard, he's hit deep, out of here. It's a home run in the first round. Cowboys take it out of the yard with Ezekiel Elliott, running back out of the Ohio State University. This guy's going to come in and absolutely be a home run for these guys day one. He's going to help this offense get back to the level that they were 2 years ago when DeMarco Murray was the leading rusher in the NFL and the Cowboys were steamrolling teams up front. We'll see if they can get back to that now with a healthy Tony Romo. We don't know for how long, but with Tony Romo back in the saddle and now a big-time running back behind Tony Romo, this offense could go back to where they were just 2 years ago when they were one of the most dangerous teams in all of the National Football League. You go to the second round, 34th overall selection, Notre Dame linebacker Jaylen Smith is a home. You see where my head is already. Is the selection. Jaylen Smith for me, you know how I feel. You already know how I feel about this pick. Me being a Notre Dame fan myself, I watched this guy grow and blossom into the player that he became his junior or his, where were we? His junior season and or senior season. I think we were at junior season, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, this guy was a fantastic player at Notre Dame, and he's got so many different skills that he possesses. And if not for the knee injury, we're not even having this discussion in the second round because he's not around in the second round. You're probably talking about the best pure talent in this entire draft class, sans for the injury. So, you know how I feel about this selection, man. I was floored that the Cowboys took him because I didn't think that they would pull the trigger here. I didn't think they had the balls to pull the trigger here and go get probably the most talented prospect in this entire draft class. And with their second round pick so early in the second round, I thought this guy was going to have to wait until later in the second round to get selected. I thought he was going to be a second round pick. Unlike many, I thought Jaylen Smith was going to be a second round pick. I just didn't think it was going to be this early. But kudos to the Cowboys for having the balls and the gumption to pull the trigger on a guy that I think, if healthy, will provide huge dividends. Okay, the return on investment, that ROI here on Jaylen Smith is going to be out of this world. if this guy's healthy. And I think he'll get better with science and technology the way that it is now. You're not telling me this guy's not going to get healthy again, healthy enough. I mean, his 90% is better than most 100% for guys in this league. So if this guy doesn't ever get back to 100, but he gets to 95, 90, and again, this is all inconsequential because we don't really know what percentages actually mean and all that nonsense. We don't even know what, he's running at or whatever. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. If this guy gets back a semblance of what he once was, if he gets back to a semblance of what he once was, there's no discussion that the Cowboys made the right decision here. In the second round, 34th overall selection, Notre Dame linebacker for me is look, I used to play baseball, in case you didn't know. I was a captain of my baseball team in high school, loved playing baseball, and I'm tell you the worst feeling in the world as a baseball player is when you're in the outfield and you hear the ping! You hear that shot, you see it, you hear it, and you know it's gone. You don't even need to come out of your damn stance. You're like this, waiting, trying to be on the balls of your feet in case something happens, and you hear ping! And you see that ball fly off that bat, and much like a pitcher in the major league who gives it up, who throws it, and then he sees that ball get hit and he drops his head. I feel like that with this Jaylen Smith pick, man. The Cowboys loaded up, bow, hit that thing, and I'm in the outfield and I don't even move. I'm just like, you can put it on the board. Yes! All right. For the Dallas Cowboys, back-to-back jacks for the Cowboys as they start this draft off with a bang. I don't think anybody had a bigger impact draft-wise other than Jacksonville. I think those two are neck and neck. I mean, both of these teams in Jacksonville and Dallas arguably got two top 5 talents in this draft in the first and second round. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody else is doing that in this draft, but, I mean, injuries can do something for you. And if you're the Cowboys or the Jacksonville Jaguars, you feel damn good about what you were able to accomplish in the first 2 rounds. Hey, everyone else is lost. Maybe your game potentially in the future. We will see what happens with Jaylen Smith. He wants to play in 2016. I don't think it's in his best interest to suit up and take the field in 2016. If I'm the Cowboys, I spent a second round pick on this guy. I'm looking long-term future. I don't want to rush this guy on the field as badly as he would like to play in 2016. You're sitting your ass down and you won't see the field till 2017, buddy. And I don't give a damn how ready you are or how good you feel. You're not seeing the field until training camp next year. That's how I would handle him if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, but we'll see what happens and how good this team is. And if they don't put him on the PUP list and if they don't put him on IR, we'll see what happens in Dallas this season. But you move on to the third round, 67th pick overall, Nebraska defensive lineman Malik Collins is the selection. And here's another guy that I said, wow, the Cowboys, they get it. They understand what they need in Big D. 6'2", 311-pound defensive lineman. He's a big athlete. That's the first pro. This guy lined up all along the defensive line at Nebraska. In fact, on third downs, a lot of times, they would stand this guy up in a 2-point stance and allow him to rush from multiple spots. Outside linebacker. Usually it was a stunt that he was going to run inside, but it doesn't matter. He was lining up, at the middle linebacker, mugging the A-gap and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this guy was all over the place. So he's an athlete, and they used him like an athlete at Nebraska. Good quickness off the snap. There are times where he'll absolutely just win right off the snap and get into the backfield and be a disruptive force. Whether he's making a tackle or not, he's blowing up the play. So his quickness will win out. Sometimes it'll shine through and it'll allow him to get into the backfield. Solid hand usage. He's one of these guys that will hand fight you, will do all of these karate chopping moves and win off the snap because of his hand usage. It's very quick. Much like him firing off the ball, hand usage is quick and it's very dynamic, and it can get him into the backfield and help him defeat blocks. So really solid hand usage for Malik Collins. Bevy of moves. This is a guy that I feel like he's still unrefined, but this guy can use a spin, a rip, a swim, a bull rush. He's got a number of moves and ways that he can get into the backfield and impact the play. So again, while he's raw and still has a lot of things to learn and some things to fine tune, I do like the fact that he's not one of these one-trick pony guys that's just looking to bull rush you all day, every day, and doesn't come with a secondary move or any other kind of move to try to get into the backfield. He's a guy that will mix it up on you with a bevy of pass rushing moves. He's got upside. And when you look at Malik Collins in this selection, and I'm going to talk about all of his cons and some of the things that are drawbacks to him, this is an upside pick because, and look, generally speaking, 95% of the players selected in the NFL draft in general are upside picks because you're expecting these guys to get better. You're looking for their best football to be ahead of them. So me saying that he has upside isn't really saying much. I mean, stands for a couple of guys like, for me, a Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd isn't going to get much better in my eyes. I think Tyler Boyd is who we think he is. He's not going to get any faster. He's not going to get any taller. So he is what he is as a football player. He's polished. He runs solid routes. He's going to catch the football. You pretty much know what you're getting out of Tyler Boyd at this point. You know, some guys, they have so much athleticism. If they can just fine-tune route running, or they can change this about their game or that about their game, they can take it to the next level. Certain guys come in the league and you look at him and you say, okay, he's a safe pick. He's probably not going to get much better than he is already, but what he is already is damn good, so we feel confident in taking him. So this isn't one of those picks. Malik Collins has a lot of growing to do as a football player. He can be way more impactful than he is, so the upside on this guy is tremendous. He's only a junior coming out of Nebraska. Could have stayed there and played another year and gotten even better, but he decided my talents are good enough to get me in the NFL now, and I'll learn on-the-job training once I get to the National Football League. And so the Cowboys saw that athleticism, saw that upside, and said, we'll take a flyer on this guy and bring him in and get him going in the direction that we want him to. You go to his cons, he'll miss some tackles. I saw him get in the backfield, disrupt. And again, you don't always have to make the tackle to make a play. But again, if you do all the work, you do all the heavy lifting, you beat your blocker, you get 2-3 yards into the backfield, why not make the tackle? You're already there. You did all the heavy lifting. Why not get the credit that you deserve for doing all of that? So, yeah, he misses some tackles, but he does his job. He disrupts the play a lot of times. So, again, I want to see you get guys on the ground. That's the name of the game. I'd like to see him make some tackles in that backfield once he gets back there. No dominant trait right now. And that could change again. Talked about the upside. That could change at the next level. But right now, I talked about him having a bevy of moves, bull rush, you know, spin move, rip move, swim move, all of those things. None of them are dominant. You know, the bull rush isn't dominant. The swim move isn't dominant. Rip, none of that. None of these moves are dominant. None of these actually scare you. And maybe with a little bit of fine-tuning and technique-wise, this guy will be able to come in and really get better and take one of these moves to the next level and have that catapult him into a level where we're not talking about potential, we're now talking about talent coming to fruition. So we'll see what happens, but right now, none of his moves to me scare me. There's no dominant trait here. The athleticism isn't off the charts. It's good, it's not great. You know, the physicality, it's good, it's not great. I want to see him take something, make it his own, and turn that into his dominant traits, which will allow him to flourish in the National Football League. And then lackluster production. And remember, I talked about him not being a guy that you look at and say he's a finished product. You look at his stats throughout college and you say, man, this guy, a lot of unfulfilled potential here. The stats don't always tell the story about an impact on a game, especially when you're talking about a defensive or offensive lineman. But with this guy, you didn't see a lot of production from him, and even when you watch the tape, sometimes you feel like he can do more. And I feel like that when I watch him. I say, this is a guy that can do more. And I think with him going to Dallas under their defensive line coach, who is one of the best in the business, he's gonna go in there, and I think Rod Marinelli is gonna take this guy and he's gonna mold him. This is a big slab of clay here, really is what it is. And Rod Marinelli is going to take him and he's going to turn this guy into a gem for the Cowboys. 3rd round selection, 67th pick, Nebraska defensive lineman. Malik Collins to me is a triple. To me, the talent here, the potential here, it's oozing and it is dripping all over the place. And if Rod Marinelli can kind of sop it all up and form it into this big hulking figure that can help them along this defensive line, I think the Cowboys will be much better off because of it. So I think because of all the things that he brings to the table and all the things that I've seen, even though I feel like it's a lot of untapped potential, I think Rod Marinelli, if there's anybody in this league that can get that potential out of him, it'll be Rod Marinelli with this Dallas Cowboys defense. You go to the 4th round, 101st pick overall, defensive end out of Oklahoma. Charles Tapper is the selection. Another fine selection by this Cowboys staff. 6'3", 271 pounds. Physical, versatile defensive lineman. This is a guy that can do a number of things for you. It's weird how he lines up because a lot of times you don't see guys line up right over the tackle, right over the guard, right over the center. And it's weird seeing that because, again, you don't see that very often. This guy would line up at 0 tech. I mean, this is a 271 pounder. And again, we're talking about the Big 12, okay? So keep it in its proper perspective. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to be on a third down when it's a passing situation, not like he's being asked to stand up as the, nose in a, base front on first down. That's not what's happening here. But this guy would line up at 0 tech. He would line up at the 2 tech right in front of the guard. I mean, he was doing a number of things where I'm just like, who does that? He's lining up at the 4 tech right in front of the tackle, and I'm like, who lines up like that? I mean, normally you've got some kind of angle where you're shading or you're in a gap. This guy's lined up head over the center, head over the guard, head over the tackle. It's weird. You don't see that very often, but that's the kind of versatility you get it with Charles Tapper, and he would win against all of those different positions: guard, center, tackle, you name it. He was winning against these guys. You also go to his next pro, strong at the point of attack, not stout at the point, strong, physically strong at the point of attack. This is the guy that wins, and he's got I remember I talked about no dominant trait with Malik Collins. This guy's got a dominant trait, that's Charles Tapper, okay? He knows where his bread is buttered. And I told you, when you're a defensive lineman, you don't have to have 18 moves to get to the quarterback. If you got one fastball and you got one changeup, preferably 2, but if you got one changeup off of that fastball, you're ready to go, man. And so he plays with outstanding leverage. That's the next pro, which takes me to the next pro after that, and I'll lump them in together because I think one goes with the other. Plays with outstanding leverage, which leads me into his tremendous bull rush, which is the next pro. Here's a guy that wins with this bull rush. And I looked at him initially and I'm like, let's see what this guy's about. Probably gonna be more of a finesse player using spins and rips and swims to try to get in the backfield. And then no, he's one of these guys that's just gonna line you up, stick his hands up under your pads, drive you back. And he came with a relentless bull rush throughout the 3 or 4 different games I watched him in. The Kansas game stands out from 2015. He had like 3 or 4 sacks in that game. And he showed off a number of different traits that I think is going to help him at the next level. And one of them was his bull rush. I think he might have came with about 10 or 11 straight bull rushes. Never changed it up. Didn't look to do it. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere it came a spin. And I'm like, whoa. And that offensive lineman said, whoa, where the hell did that come from? You bull rushed me the last 12 plays in a row, and now you hit me with a spin. He wasn't expecting that. Charles Tapper got right in the back, got to the quarterback, got him on the ground, sack. So that's what I'm talking about. When you've got an elite move that's dominant, and he's got that long arm of the law, stretch it out there, and he'll get you with that one-arm pile drive going. So he can go with the two-hand approach, that one-arm pile drive, and then next thing you know, you're looking for that power. Here comes a little bit of quickness with a spin and or a rip or something of that nature. So I thought he did some really good things with his pass rush there. Tremendous or change-ups, and I just talked about that. I saw this guy go 10, 12 straight bull rushes, and then boom, change-up. You're looking for the fastball, looking for the fastball, looking for the fastball. Here comes a curveball with the spin, and so he can go there, he can go with the rip move. There's a number of things that excited me about Charles Tapper watching him on tape, and that was one of them. He's got good quickness and change of direction. My best example of this, national champion or playoff game, or Oklahoma versus Clemson in the playoff game. We know how slippery Deshaun Watson is as a quarterback, and Charles Tapper gets in the backfield, beats his man, and just Deshaun Watson is looking to juke him and kind of trick him up, and Charles Tapper is coming under control, breaks down, changes direction, wraps him up. Problem was, he didn't get him on the ground. He wrapped him up. Deshaun Watson puts his hand down and is able to keep his balance. Charles Tapper thinks he's got a sack because his knee is almost down, never hits the ground. Deshaun Watson keeps his balance, gets up, runs for about 4 yards. But that showed me that he's got the ability to stop, change directions very quickly. We're talking about a very athletic, one of the most athletic quarterbacks in all of college football, and he was able to stop and corral him, even though Deshaun Watson was trying to shake him out of his shoes. So this guy has really good quickness, but also has really good change of direction as well. And solid rush awareness, and you don't get this a lot with guys. I think one of the best rush awareness guys in the league right now, and has been doing it for ages, and you're very familiar with him, is DeMarcus Ware. Here's a guy that will go up the field rush, initially not win. Quarterback starts to step up, even thinks about taking off and running. DeMarcus Ware peels back, gets the sack, sometimes comes away with the football as well. And you'll see that from Charles Tapper. He'll get up the field, realize that the quarterback's looking to step up in the pocket. A lot of these guys, they rush up the field and they just continue to rush, and then the tackle pushes them around the corner and they're out of the play. Well, if you got good rush awareness, what you'll do is you'll peel back, get back into the play, because you know the quarterback's stepping up. He's not going to run into your sack 9 times out of 10. He's looking to step up and create more time in the pocket. So that's when you need to take the initiative and spin back to the quarterback and get yourself a sack or a hurry or a pressure and impact the play. And you'll see Charles Tapper do that from time to time. Got himself a sack in that 3-sack game versus Kansas. Got himself a sack doing that, peeling back, coming back, good rush awareness to not allow that pocket to not only be formed, but to open up a gaping lane for the quarterback if he so chooses to run with the football. Go to his cons. He needs to develop more of a rush plan. I told you he went 12 straight bull rushes or so in a row. I like to see him switch it up a little bit more because the spin move was impactful. The rip move was impactful. He's got good quickness. Use all of those things to your benefit. Don't just come with the bull rush 90% of the time because, yeah, in college it worked and it worked well. We'll see if it works very well for him in college, in the NFL, but these guys are much stronger in the NFL, so we'll see if he's able to come up with a little bit more of a plan when he's going after the quarterback, because I think there is some definite talent there with Charles Tapper. Stack and shed better. I don't think he stacks and sheds as well as he could. For a guy that gets in the backfield with the bull rush and impacts plays that way, can get in the backfield, get after the quarterback. I don't see this guy winning and defeating blocks when he's not on the other side of the line of scrimmage very often. When the offensive lineman gets the best of Charles Tapper and he is able to either stalemate him at the line of scrimmage or push him a yard or two off the line of scrimmage, I don't see him disengaging and getting to the ball carrier enough. And that's something I'd like to see him do better to have more of an impact in the run game. Is to stack and shed better and get his hands on the ball carrier and more production. This is a guy that I say to myself, this guy's highly talented. Why aren't there more numbers here? Why aren't there more sacks? And again, you can't always tell. There might be 1,000 pressures in here, 1,000 QB hurries, and he just missed. He could be one of those guys that's almost close all the time, but 15 and a half career sacks. Not a lot for a guy that is essentially, what are we talking about, a senior here at Oklahoma. Played probably the last 3 years, played extensively, and was a starter probably at least the last 2 years. Not a lot of production here. And in fact, of those 15 and a half sacks, 7 of them came this past season. It was his best season, and that's what I like to see. I want to see that upward trajectory where you're getting better as a player. As you leave college, you're playing your best football. That's what you want, and that's what you're getting out of Charles Tapper right now. So I like what this guy brings to the table. I think that production, much like with Malik Collins, he'll be a much better pro than he was a collegiate football player. And that's what you're hoping for when you select the players, that he'll get better with time and experience. And that's what you're drafting for. That's what the draft is all about, getting guys that you hope and project to be really good pro football players. And I think Charles Tapper may be one of those guys as well in the 4th round, 101st pick overall. Oklahoma defensive lineman Charles Tapper for me is a triple. Really like what he brings to the table. The Cowboys are starving for a dominant edge rusher. I don't know if he's it, but I think he has some of the qualities of the guy that can come in and really help you and get you 8.5 sacks in his rookie season and really give you some hope for the future, as this could be a guy that could come in and be the new DeMarcus Ware for this football team. I don't think he's what DeMarcus Ware was as an athlete or is as an athlete, but I don't think he's a guy that you should sell short either, because I think he can do some really good things for you along that defensive line. Go to the next 4th round pick, 135th overall. Mississippi State quarterback Dak Prescott is the selection. This one is a pretty tricky and dicey one, because we all know about Jerry Jones and what he wanted to do. And I actually talked about this in my video that will never be released. It's a video that I started to do, and I actually doubled back and said, no, I'm not going to do it because it's the timing is off, and everybody's ready for the draft prospects, or excuse me, wrap-up series. And me coming out with another video that's not a wrap-up would probably really annoy everyone. So I didn't come out with it, but this is what I had to say on the whole Jerry Jones situation with Dak Prescott being the selection, and of course missing out on Paxton Lynch.
The Seattle Seahawks were asking for a 2nd and a 3rd round selection. Now, let's think about this for a second. Had the Dallas Cowboys made the trade back from 4 to 6, they would have acquired another pick, presumably a 3rd or a 4th round pick from the Baltimore Ravens, which would have gave them the extra ammunition necessary to then pull off this trade here with the Seattle Seahawks to get Paxton Lynch. So because they did not execute the trade earlier on and selected Ezekiel Elliott, they missed out on an opportunity to get Paxton Lynch. Now, Jerry Jones wanted to do the trade, but his son Steven said, hell no, we're not making this trade. Here's what good old Jer had to say on the subject matter of the Cowboys missing out on Paxton Lynch. When I look back on my life, I overpaid for my big successes every time. And when I tried to get a bargain, get a little cheaper, or get a better deal on it, I ended up usually either getting it and not being happy I got it, or missing it. And I should have overpaid here. Seahawks wanted a 2nd and a 3rd round pick, and Stephen Jones vetoed the deal, allowing the Denver Broncos to swoop in and get their man at 25, quarterback out of Memphis, Paxton Lynch. So now, because of the deal that the Cowboys didn't make at 4, they didn't make the deal at 25 as well. So funny how those things end up happening. Had they made the deal earlier in the draft, they would have had extra resources to reallocate in this particular trade and would have had the ammunition to then pull the trigger and get Paxton Lynch, quarterback out of Memphis, at 25 with the Seahawks in a trade. But because of the fact that they didn't have the resources, they didn't want to pull the trigger, give up their 2nd and 3rd round selections, and allow the Denver Broncos to do the same and move up and get Paxton Lynch. So now their 2nd and 3rd round picks are going to be tied to the hip of Paxton Lynch, because if Paxton Lynch works out and Jaylen Smith, linebacker out of Notre Dame, and defensive tackle, defensive lineman out of Nebraska, Malik Collins, their 3rd round selection, don't work out, then you're going to look at that and say, we could have given up that 2nd and 3rd round pick and gotten Paxton Lynch. Instead, we didn't. Let's see if Dak Prescott, quarterback that the Cowboys selected later on in the draft in the 4th round, pans out for them and makes this whole situation obsolete down the road.
So, look, at the end of the day, if I'm Dak Prescott, initially I'm excited about, staying in down south and giving me an opportunity to play for one of the most prestigious NFL franchises in the world. And that being said, though, I'm a little salty because my owner just let it publicly be known that I wasn't his first selection. I wasn't the guy that he was targeting all along. In fact, he's drooling over this other quarterback here, and I'm just sitting here. What am I, chopped liver? So, if I'm Dak Prescott, there would have been mixed emotions. Yeah, eventually, you just got to get over that. If you're Dak Prescott, you say, okay, I'll show him that he got the right guy, and then I'm better than Paxton Lynch. But you ask Jerry Jones, and he feels like he should have went out and got Paxton Lynch. So this is pretty interesting. If I'm Dak Prescott, you just got to let that roll down your back. At the end of the day, it is what it is. You see where they were leaning, and you say to yourself, okay, I'll show these guys. Use it as motivation if you're Dak Prescott. But in the 4th round, 135th pick overall, Mississippi State quarterback Dak Prescott for me is a triple. I love this selection because it seems like for years, whether it's been one of these project quarterbacks that the Cowboys have selected or one of these aging veterans that's no good, it's time for the Cowboys to come up with a plan for the future, and I think this is it right here in Dak Prescott. I think this is a guy you can develop, and you're hoping and praying that Tony Romo can stay healthy for at least 2 years, give this guy a chance to learn, and then in 2 years when Tony Romo's back isn't able to stand up to the rigors of the NFL, or his shoulder isn't able to stay up, or his collarbone, even though it's got a metal plate, I believe, inserted in it now, doesn't hold up, or whatever the case may be, one of his numerous ailments flares up, you have Dak Prescott ready to step in and assume the throne and be the guy to take over for the future, foreseeable future at least. So really like to pick. He's a triple for me. We'll see what happens in Big D with Dak Prescott and how his development comes along. The worst thing that could happen is Tony Romo goes down and this guy's got to hit the field sooner rather than later. 6th round, 189th overall pick, Purdue cornerback Anthony Brown is the selection. 5'11", 192 pounds. Speedy cover corner is the first pro. This guy's a 4.35 40 guy. That is tremendous speed. That would have put him 8th best for combine participants over the last 15 years. So that just tells you how fast this guy was actually moving at the combine. One of the fastest. He was actually the fastest. One of the fastest players. I think he was like top 3 in terms of speed. Might have even been the fastest player at the combine this year, but that's some elite speed there, my friends. So this guy can pick him up and put him down. Good feet and quickness. You'll see this guy use his feet and quickness to stay in plays. He's always in the play. Now again, there's a difference between being in the play and making a play, but he's always in the play. And you saw that in the Nebraska game when he had 3 interceptions, where the receiver actually had the ball in his hands, but because Anthony Brown was right there with him, he was able to pop the ball out of his hands and, oh, look what I found, an interception. So he's always in the play. Good feet and quickness helps him drive and plant and drive on the football. You'll see him do that as well. And guys will catch the football. Saw him against Illinois and Geronimo Allison, and he drove on a number of these plays with Geronimo Allison. Allison still made the catch, but he was there to get him. As soon as he caught the football, if it was a 5-yard gain, he was going down after 5 yards gained on the play. So he does a really good job of having good feet and quickness. And those things help him when he's in coverage. He's comfortable in any coverage. At Purdue, I saw him in a number of different coverages. He's not always going to win, but he'll come up in your face, delete the airspace. You know how he likes to do sometimes here. He'll also come off in the press and bail technique. It'll look like man-to-man press, and he'll just bail pre-snap. You got him in just straight up zone where he's just squatting on routes. So there's a number of different things that he brings to the table. And you saw a lot of it on display against that Nebraska team when he had 3 interceptions in that ball game. Made a number of plays, including a diving interception, which leads me to my next pro. Has some ball skills. He had to dive for that one, lay out, and secure the football, not let it touch the ground. Did a really good job. Has some ball skills. They're not great, but there are some ball skills there, which will allow him to potentially make some plays at the next level. And my final pro for this guy is he's physical with receivers around the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that will come up and press. I was really impressed with him and the jams that he was getting off, because he was really giving it to some of these receivers. I mean, really disrupting routes. They wanted to come off the ball and get up the field, and he's pushing them laterally. I mean, I was really impressed with what this guy was doing from a jam perspective, just being physical with these receivers. Now again, the drawback to that is if you miss, you come with a hard punch and you miss, you're off balance. You're beat. Simple as that. I don't give a damn how fast you are, you're beat. So there is a drawback to that, but I'm gonna tell you what, man, this guy was impressive with the way he was handling receivers up around the line of scrimmage, and he was doing it very physically. So I like that. I like it a lot with Anthony Brown. You go to his cons. Lacks interception production. Had a 3 interception game. Those were his only 3 interceptions in his entire collegiate career. So, and this is a guy that started at Purdue for like the last 3 years for essentially almost every game. Definitely started every game this year and just about all the games last year. And I think he started about 8 or 9 games a year previous to that. So we're talking about a guy that's been a starting corner for Purdue quite some time now and only 3 interceptions to his name. I'm not really feeling that a lot. So that just gives you a little bit of insight as to what you're getting here in terms of a guy making plays on the football. Sketchy tackler. I do not like the effort I get out of him when tackling. I see a lot of flybys. I see a lot of oles. I see a lot of a guy just saying, hey, I tried. It just, the effort isn't there for me enough. And he'll get guys on the ground. Don't get me wrong. He's not a guy that absolutely wants nothing to do with tackling. He's just sketchy. I see him and I'm like, I don't trust you as a guy holding up that edge out there. If a team wants to run wide and they're running right at Anthony Brown, I think you can run right at Anthony Brown. That's how I feel. You can run directly at him and pick up 12 yards because he's not getting off his block. He's not impacting the play. He's not making a tackle. So I worry about him. And it really made me mad because I watched him be physical with receivers, and I wanted him to apply that to helping in the run game, supporting in the run game, and I just didn't get that same physicality. Why? I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know the answer to that. Can and will panic and get grabby down the field, and for a guy that's running 4.35, that annoys me because you got all this athleticism, all this speed, and sometimes you just need to find the football. No need to panic, and that's what a lot of you'll get out of a lot of collegiate corners is they don't know where the football is because they don't feel like they have enough time to locate it. So they don't even bother looking back for the football. I'm just gonna panic. I'm gonna get grabby down the field. You're asking for a penalty at the next level. And this isn't college where, hey, 15-yard pass interference penalty won't kill me. I'd much rather give that up than this 47-yard catch down the field. Hey, that's cool in college. I'll tell you right now in the NFL, that 47-yard catch stands because that pass interference, you're getting that ball at the spot of the foul. So the game changes when you get to the NFL, so I'd like to see him be more aware of where the football is. Look back and locate, young fella. Find the football. Don't panic. You're a fast guy. You got enough makeup speed. Locate the ball so you don't have to panic and get grabby down the football field. In the 6th round, 189th overall selection, Purdue cornerback Anthony Brown for me is a double. A lot of the traits that he has I like. I like the physicality at the line of scrimmage with the receivers, but I don't get that same physicality with the running backs and the receivers when they catch the football. I don't get that same support in the run game. Why? Again, I don't know. Don't ask me. Stop asking. I don't know why. And then I don't get a lot of interception production. You have an interception or 3 interceptions in one game, and then you don't have another interception the rest of your collegiate career. That's mind-boggling. So a lot of things that I'm not a fan of, and then of course you get down the field and you're getting grabby. Some things you got to clean up here. Even though you're getting a tremendous athlete, there's some work here to be done. That's why he's a 6th round pick. It's Anthony Brown. You go to the next 6th round pick, 212th overall, Central Michigan safety Kavon Frasier is the selection. 6 feet, 217 pounds. Great physical build. You look at this guy, he looks made for the safety position in the National Football League. I look at him, I say, man, you look the part of a safety, and he plays the part of a safety as well. Athleticism with explosiveness. This is a guy that ran a 4.47, then turned around and ran a 4.52 or so. So I say he's about a 4.5 flat guy. He's a 4.5 40 guy, but the guy can run. Okay, that simply put, for a safety with that size at 217, that kind of athleticism and explosiveness, you take it every single day of the week. He drives on underneath routes. When he's close to the line of scrimmage, tight end running out on a little flare route, or tight end coming and trying to hook up, he drives on those routes, breaks the football up, hits the tight end, hits the running back out of the backfield, does a really good job of coming down physically downhill on those underneath routes. I think he does a really good job on those, cleaning up plays and not allowing extra yardage after the catch or even a catch at all. So I think he does a really good job on driving on these underneath routes. To me, he has a feel of one of these guys that you put down in the box as that cover 3 safety that comes down and is underneath those hook zones and out on in the flats and playing against these running backs coming into the flat. I think he's a guy that you can trust around the line of scrimmage to do those things and do it very well. He's an imposing hitter. Now, I think if you ask him his one claim to fame, the one thing he does the best, it's hit. This guy, he's got a mouth on him, man. I watched him in the bowl game versus Minnesota, and sometimes these guys can be very annoying because it's one thing when you light a dude up and you separate man from ball. Yeah, you can get up chirping, looking down at him and all that stuff. That's cool. When you give up a 17-yard gain, when you're chasing a guy down from behind and you blaze him and you give up 27 yards, do you really want to get up talking smack to that guy? When you just gave up a first down on 3rd and 8 and this guy catches a 10-yard pass, yeah, you waxed him, but he gets up and gives you the first down. You still talking trash? Like, He was talking trash, and it didn't matter the circumstance. You know, they're losing in the game. He didn't give a damn. He was still letting his voice be heard. But he's a physical football player. Make no mistake about it. He will come up and hit you hard. He's a physical safety. That I look at him like a Barry Church type. You know, Barry Church will come out, put his body on the line, will lay you out, has some athleticism, but isn't always where he needs to be. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I tell you what, Kavon Frasier will lay the lumber on any ball carrier. Doesn't matter size. He's coming with a mentality that I can hit anybody and knock them backwards. He's a big physical safety. Good range. I talked about his speed. So that speed allows him to range around the field. This guy will take some terrible angles and still cover a bunch of ground and still get to the ball carrier despite taking a poor angle that probably cost him 5 to 7 yards on the play and gave up another 10 additional yards on the play. He has great range, which will allow him to get to anywhere on the field at any point. His range is that good. Versatility, okay? This is a guy that has some real good versatility. They played him as a single high safety at Central Michigan. They also brought him up into the box as an imposing physical force. I already told you about him being a really imposing hitter. So there's some versatility there. I prefer him in the box. That way you don't have him having to take angles and all of those things to the football. I like him around the line of scrimmage, allow him to be instinctive around the line of scrimmage. And I told you I like him driving on underneath routes. He does a really good job on the underneath routes, so I would prefer him to be up around the line of scrimmage. But with that kind of speed, it's very tempting to say, hey, you go back and be a free safety. And I think in this day and age in the NFL, and I say this all the time, got to be interchangeable as a safety. Got to be able to play some free, got to be able to play some strong. The delineation between strong and free safety is becoming blurred now. It's just safety. You just got to be a safety. And so you got some teams that have distinctions. Okay, you're my strong safety, you're my free safety. And then you just got teams that just have safeties on the field. And you don't know where they're going to be from snap to snap. Is he going to be lined up 20 yards off the ball? Is he going to be mugging the 8 gap? Is he going to be 8 yards around the line of scrimmage, sniffing and being nosy? I think Kavon Frasier is one of those guys you can do a number of things with and not really put him in a box per se, or literally put him in the box. So we'll see. Special teams value, Final Pro. He's a guy that you can put on all of your special teams, have him be an impact player that way. With that kind of speed, that physicality, I think they're going to love him on special teams as well. You go to his cons. Over aggressive. This guy is way too aggressive. And it's going to cost him. It cost him in college quite often, and it's going to cost him at the next level. Very aggressive, but again, I always say this, give me the guy that's over aggressive, okay? I don't want to have to beat a guy with a stick to get him to respond. Give me the guy that I got to calm down, okay? Give me the dude that's over aggressive, that I got to try to coach up to get him to play within a scheme, than a guy that's just out there going through the motions, that's playing sleep. I don't want to have to wake a guy up. Give me the guy that I got to calm down. He's very over aggressive, will take some poor angles, which is the next con. Take some poor pursuit angles. Talk about over aggressiveness. He's the type of guy that'll bite on play action fake. Bite on play action fake, come up 3 or 4 steps falsely, tight end runs right by him, touchdown. He's that type of player. He's the guy that's over aggressive, takes poor pursuit angles. I talked about him being that last line defense, single high safety. I can't tell you how many poor angles he took in that Minnesota game. I watched him in at least 3 or 4 games. Watched him against one of these other, Western Michigan, I believe. One of these other Michigan teams. I watched him in like 3 or 4 games. I think I watched him against, I want to say, no, it wasn't Toledo. That was your next player. But I watched him in at least 3 games. And this guy's taking some bad angles every game. Especially that bowl game versus Minnesota. Minnesota ran the football all over Central Michigan and won that football game. And the reason why they had such success is because Kavon Frasier, who should have been Frasier, should have been filling a lot of these gaps, took some really bad angles, gave up some huge runs in the run game, some critical ones late in the ball game on 3rd down, one to the quarterback on a quarterback keep that gave the Gophers the go-ahead score in that game. Some poor angles by Kavon Frasier gave up some huge runs in that game, and ultimately, I think, cost the Central Michigan football team that game. Stress fracture in his foot. He was limited at the combine, only did the bench at the combine because he had a stress fracture in his foot. I don't like to hear stress fractures, especially in the foot of any athlete. He's not as big. He's not like we're talking about a 7-footer here, like you're in the NBA. So he should be fine. I told you he already came out and blazed his pro day. So from that standpoint, he's fine now. Always worry about a stress fracture. Always like to bring up major injuries because you just want to always have that in the back of your mind when you're talking about a prospect. But in the 6th round, 212th pick overall, Central Michigan safety, Kavon Frasier for me is a double. This guy has a lot of talent. He's got the physicality, he's got the size, the frame for an NFL safety. He's got everything you're looking for. Now it's all about coaching and getting this guy to play the game the way that it's supposed to be played and have him do the things that's going to allow him to excel at the next level. Right now, I think he's just a little bit out of control. He's OC right now. If they can reel him in Big D, you could potentially have yourself a really good safety for years to come in Kavon Frasier. Go to the 6th round again. 216th pick overall, Eastern Michigan running back Darius Jackson is the selection. 6 feet, 221 pounds. Tremendous athlete, 4.37, 40. That's picking him up, putting him down, folks. I don't have to tell you. 41-inch vertical. That explosiveness matches up with the speed that that I just told you about. And you actually see that speed from time to time. You don't see it often, but you do see it from time to time. I watched him against Old Dominion. And there's a running play where he comes out of the backfield, makes a cut, sticks his foot in the ground, gets up the field, and runs by probably about 4 Old Dominion University defenders. And I mean, he absolutely smokes these guys. It almost looked like a 10th grader running against 2nd graders. I mean, he literally ran past every single one of these defenders, and it wasn't even close. And they all had angles. They all should have been able to make the tackle, and he ran by every single one of them, and none of them laid a single finger on Darius Jackson. There's explosiveness, and that to me, that play exemplifies the type of explosiveness that he has. A guy that can take it, stick his foot in the ground, and on any given carry, take it to the house. If given space, this guy can accelerate. He's a build-up speed guy now, not gonna turn on the jets immediately. He's not one of those guys that as soon as he gets the football, takes 2 steps, he's at top speed. No, he needs 6 or 7 steps, but once he gets to top speed, good luck catching Darius Jackson. He catch out of the backfield. I thought he was a reliable pass catcher for Eastern Michigan out of the backfield. Had 21 catches this past season. Saw him catch the football at least 8 or 9 times in 3 or 4 different games. I watched him against LSU. I watched him against Toledo. I watched him and in another game too. I watched him all over the place. I'm gonna tell you right now, I wasn't overly impressed, but there were flashes there where I'm just like, wow. If I could get that out of you every time, every game, every snap, you could have something here. He'd put me to sleep for, the game would literally be 9 minutes long. The tape would be 9 minutes long, and he put me to sleep for 7 minutes and 30 seconds of that tape. But that 1 minute and 30 seconds would be exhilarating playmaking explosiveness at its finest. And you said, wow, that's breathtaking. Where is that? And you wouldn't get that again. And that's the thing that could be very frustrating with Darius Jackson. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he can catch it out of the backfield. He's a guy that also protects solidly on 3rd down, so you get a little bit of pass pro with him as well. And I think if he's going to make this football team, maybe that's a niche he can carve out for himself. Again, with Ezekiel Elliott, who is a 3-down football player, I really don't know if this guy's going to be able to carve out a niche for himself on this football team or not. I really felt like this was a luxury pick that the Cowboys didn't necessarily need. I mean, how many backs could you possibly need? You still have, now I'll tell you why I think they selected him in a little while, but you still got McFadden. You went out and got Alfred Morris. You got Dunbar coming back off an injury, and you drafted Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, how many backs do you plan on keeping? So that's interesting, but we'll see. He's a one cut and go back. That's the final pro. This is a guy that will stick his foot in the ground, get up the field. I talked about that one run against Old Dominion where he stuck his foot in the ground, cut up the field, and then it was lights out, baby. So he's a guy, one cut and go back, does it very well, and we'll see how he fits in this Cowboys power run scheme. You look at his cons. Doesn't play to his abilities enough. And I just kind of mentioned that. I kind of alluded to that. I'm going to expound on that a little bit more now, though. This is a guy that you don't see that 4.37 speed very often. you don't get to see him be explosive very often. I watched him against Toledo, and they bottled him up. And I don't feel like he has good vision. I don't feel like he presses holes well enough. I don't think he doesn't cut it back when he's supposed to. I mentioned this with Dwayne Washington, and I don't quite remember who selected him in the draft right now off the top of my head, but he was a 7th round pick for some team in this draft out of Washington, and he's a dynamic athlete, a guy that is 6'2", I believe, right around 225, 230 pounds. So he's got the size you're looking for, runs a 4.4 40. He's a guy that is very athletic and dynamic out in space, runs by defenders, gets in the end zone, explosive plays left and right. But he doesn't have the feel, the natural feel for the running back position. I feel the same way about Darius Jackson. I don't feel like he understands what it is to be a running back, cutbacks and vision and pressing holes and patience. He'll just ram it up his offensive lineman's back and take 2 yards on the play that if he presses the hole a little bit, maybe something will open up, then he can stick his foot in the ground and go much faster than slow. But he doesn't do that. So I just feel like you don't see him play to his abilities enough. I don't get to see that 4.37 40 enough. I don't get to see that explosiveness enough. And I don't think he allows that to happen because of his impatience as a runner. Doesn't run behind his pads well. I'm watching him against Toledo late in this ballgame. They are getting pounced. I mean, they are getting pounded. The score might be 56-6 at this point in the game. He takes a run off tackle, gets to the outside, doesn't lower his pad level, and the safety absolutely comes up and drubs him. I mean, flat on his back, puts him on his ass, scoops him up, and dumps him. I mean, on some old, we in a fight type of scoop and dump. Like, power drive him, bow, put him down. I mean, come on, dude, you already getting beat 56-6. Don't let the safety embarrass you on top of that, man. That's just insult to injury already. And you can't do that. That's a great example of him not running behind his pads. If you run behind your pads correctly, no safety is coming up and dumping you. He's not going to be able to get his full pad, chest, head, shoulders, all of that into your midsection, wrap you up underneath your knees, and drive you, pick you up and scoop you and drop you on your neck. He's not going to be able to do that. But he could do that because he didn't run behind his pads well. Limited collegiate production. Up until his senior season, this is a guy that was averaging right around 200 yards a season. 200 yards, 200 and some change in his junior year, 200 and some change in his sophomore year, and he rarely played in his freshman season. So you're talking about a guy here that doesn't have a lot of collegiate production, so that also worries me. But to me, the reason why that is because he's not a natural running back. He doesn't have a natural feel for the position. So I was leaning towards a single here with this guy because I was not overly impressed with Darius Jackson, but because of the height, weight, speed aspect of what he brings to the table, 6 feet, 220 pounds, which is great size for a running back, and because of that 4.37 speed behind this Dallas Cowboy, if he were with any other team, this is not a double. But because he's a Dallas Cowboy, and if he makes this roster, which I think is a long shot, but if he makes this team or is on the practice squad and they give him time to develop, this could be a guy that behind this offensive line could do some serious damage. And I look at him as a replacement for Darren McFadden because I look at him and I feel like he's the Darren McFadden clone. Darren McFadden, similar size at 6 feet, similar size at 220 pounds, similar speed at 4.37, similar running style with him not really having a great feel for cutbacks and vision, even though I don't want to sell McFadden short. Okay, even though Darren McFadden isn't the greatest running back in the world, doesn't have the greatest feel for the position, he's still a guy that's done it in this league. He did run for over 1,000 yards last year for this Cowboys offense. I just look at it like this. Do you want your old Mustang or do you want a new Mustang? Now you might have some payments on this new Mustang. You already paid for the old Mustang, okay? That one still runs. There's nothing wrong with it. Do you want to trade that one in for a new one? Or do you want to hold on to the old Mustang and keep this new Mustang off to the side? That's what the Cowboys have to decide because I think he's a Darren McFadden replacement. That's what I look at Darius Jackson as. If he's going to make this squad, if he's going to be kept around, it's going to be because he's going to replace Darren McFadden. And we know how the running back position is. You cycle these guys in and out. That's what I think he is at the end of the day. Move on to the Cowboys' final pick in this draft, another 6th rounder, 4 6th-round selections for the Cowboys, 217th pick overall. Baylor tight end Rico Gathers is the selection, and this is the first time I've ever had to put up an actual NFL picture of a player because this guy has no college picture. I mean, unless you want me to show him hooping, because this guy never played collegiate. He hasn't played organized football since middle school. So this is definitely a guy that's raw that you're taking as a prospect that you're looking to develop. This is if I've ever seen one, this is a developmental prospect here. 6'6", 273 pounds. He worked out at the New Orleans Saints facility, and so he basically put together a one-man pro day where he went out and performed for about 20 some odd teams. He came out and watched him. And in a tight end class that wasn't very strong, you get a guy like this, and he's going to turn some heads at 6'6", 273, ran a 4.8 40, so there's some athleticism there. You know he's a big physical guy because he played basketball. And so you look at him and you say, okay, big slab of clay. How fast can I mold this guy into the player that I want him to be? How well does he take coaching? And how much of his athleticism translates to the football field? Obviously, they were impressed enough at his pro day to give him a chance to play in the National Football League. And so Rico Gathers going to get a chance with this Cowboys team. Not a lot to really break down because there is no film to break down. I will say this, the Cowboys have been trying to find the heir apparent to Jason Witten, a guy that they can groom for a number of years. Even if it's just a solid number 2 tight end, they still haven't been able to find that. They let Martellus Bennett go too early, and I think that was a really good mutual parting of ways because I don't think he ever was going to meet his full potential in Dallas. Too many distractions, too many things that went wrong there. And I think he, in his mind, thought of himself as a starter. He was never going to start over Jason Witten. So I think you've been looking for a new Martellus Bennett because you've seen him blossom since he left Dallas, whether it's in Chicago, New York. Now he's going to the Patriots. He's going to be a big-time target for Tom Brady. You're looking for the ghost of Martellus Bennett. You're looking for a guy to come in and fill that void for you. You've tried Gavin Escobar. You've tried the Jeff Swain kid last year. You've tried James Hanna. They've all been solid picks, but none of them stand out. None of these guys move the needle. So at this point now, you're saying, okay, we're going to let Rico Gathers develop, and maybe he could be the answer. We'll see. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. We'll see if he can develop into the type of player the Cowboys want him to be. But you know how I am. 1,000 questions, no answers. This guy hasn't played organized football since the 6th grade. I don't know. I don't think he's Jimmy Graham. I know he's not Jimmy Graham. He's not that kind of an athlete. I know he's not Antonio Gates. He's not one of these Julius Thomas types that played college ball and now is going to just step into the gridiron and be a menace. I don't see that. So I got questions. I don't have any answers. I don't have any tape. You know what this is. It's a single in the 6th round for Rico Gathers. This is a long shot. This guy hasn't played football in eons. We'll see what happens. But Rico Gathers for me in the 7th or 6th round is a single to round out the Cowboys draft. So let's go ahead and look at this impressive Cowboys draft and total up their score. You got 2 home runs in back-to-back rounds to start out the draft in Ezekiel Elliott and Jaylen Smith. You go 3 triples in Malik Collins in the 3rd round, Charles Tapper in the 4th round, and Dak Prescott in the 4th round. So 3 triples back-to-back-to-back, which nets you a triples bonus. Then you go 3 doubles in a row. And Anthony Brown, cornerback out of Purdue, Kavon Frasier, safety out of Central Michigan, and running back Darius Jackson out of Eastern Michigan. And then you round out the draft with a single in Rico Gathers, which nets you 29. And divide that by the 9 picks, it gives the Cowboys a solid triple, 3.22 triple in the 2016 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. And I think if you want to be honest, they probably had the best draft of any team in the NFC East when it's all said and done. That's going to do it for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2016 NFL Draft. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab. Come back and join me as I continue to break down everything and everything National Football League. Just one question for you. Who's next?
There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter @InTheLabRoom or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.
In the